Is it just a misunderstood religion? Or is it a link to the creators of the outer world? Whatever they may be, being an Asian person myself, I've heard of many things in the Asian world. Like in Malaysia, they say that they can have curses and spells thrown upon your enemies if you hate them. Spirits and ghosts that attach themselves to your enemies and attack them and make your life worse and even kill them or murder them. Those are the craziest stories I've heard about voodoos. What is your take on the voodoo, and what's the craziest story you've ever heard? Grab a blanket, turn off your lights for true scary stories about the voodoo. Voodoo. I never thought I'd post anything on the internet, but my sister is always on here and suggested I share some of my stories here. I'm a 30-year-old male, and I work as a registered nurse. I have a few weird stories from my time working as a nurse, but this has to be the scariest thing that's ever happened to me. After graduating college, my friend who is also a nurse persuaded me to move to New Orleans with her. I am originally from the Midwest, a tiny, sleepy town of less than a couple thousand people. So, New Orleans was a culture shock for me. But as a 21-year-old, I love the party scene. We both work the 12 p.m. to 10 p.m. shift, and we go to work and then go party. So, the department I worked in was the emergency room. It was chaotic and crazy at times, but I am an adrenaline junkie, and it was perfect fit. So it's a Friday night. I have less than an hour left of my shift. It's been quiet, but then all hell breaks loose. I hear two women screaming as they follow the stretcher of an old man as the ambulance wheels him in. The old man looked horrible. He smelled like death, literally. He had a wound on his buttocks and was literally rotting away. Not to mention, he had high fever as well, and fluid on his lungs and was pretty much drowning in his own fluids. So as I am assessing him, the two women are shrieking, wailing, and chanting hysterically, and the doctor tells them and another male nurse to get them out of there. So I nicely try to take the older woman's hand to lead her away, and she starts hitting me and cursing me in another language. My coworker is a big linebacker-looking African-American gentleman named Andre, and starts talking to her in what I now know was a bastardized form of French Creole. Whatever he says to her, and the other woman works and they leave. We go back to helping the doctor, but then the guy codes. We do everything we can, but he dies. Andre accompanies the doctor to inform the family, and I stay back to help another nurse, getting ready to push the body down to the morgue. I hear screaming, and I hear security being paged. Now, I am not a big guy, only 5'7", but I work out and I can handle my own, so I go running as our security guards were known for taking forever. I run to the front and the younger woman is holding the older woman back as she, the older woman, screams into the doctor and Andre's face. The younger woman ends up dragging her out, and I go up to Andre and the doctor. Andre is sweating, he looks shook, so I ask him what the lady was saying. Basically, she's blaming us for her husband's death. Andre tells us she is a practitioner of voodoo, and that she cursed us and the doctor for not saving her husband. The doctor and I laugh it off, and I go on to finish up before shift change. A few weeks later, I am at work, and I see a bunch of my coworkers are crying and upset. The doctor, who I will call John, had a massive cerebral hemorrhage. He died in his sleep. I honestly chalked it up to a freak accident. He was young and very healthy, but things happen, right? However, later that day, Andre catches me in the cafeteria. He tells me that the doctor died because of the curse, and one of us was next. I'm not superstitious in the least bit. I brushed it off and told him he was being silly. That was the last time I saw him alive. Later that night, he fell asleep at the wheel and plowed into incoming traffic. After that, I quit my job at the hospital and moved back home. I went and saw my priest at my home church, and he thought I was nuts but gave me a blessing. That was 9 years ago. I still work as a nurse, but I am living in California now. I'll never know if the accidents that killed the doctor and Andre were just coincidences. Guess I never will. Possible voodoo possession? So, a few years back, my boyfriend was at a party with a bunch of friends, probably about 25 people. Things were completely normal the entire night, until about 2 or 3 a.m. About half the party had decided to go to bed. Everyone brought sleeping bags, but still about 12 people were awake, some upstairs and some downstairs in the basement. One of the ones who went to sleep was his friend Jordan, upstairs in his bedroom. Matt, my boyfriend, had decided to run to McDonald's with a friend, and upon returning, he went downstairs to hang out with a few people that were still awake while he ate. While they were down there, Jordan came downstairs and started to act very, very strange. He immediately went over to a girl who was sleeping and laid on top of her. His back was on top of her, he was facing up, and reached behind himself to grope her. She eventually got him to stop, but Matt was weirded out by the whole situation, especially since it was very out of Jordan's nature to act that way. So he decided to leave. As Matt was walking up the stairs, Jordan grabbed him by the ankle and pulled him back down the stairs. Jordan was in a crab walk position, walking with one hand and pulling Matt, a 160-pound guy, down the stairs with the other. Matt was pretty pissed off, but just got back up to head up the stairs again. Jordan again grabbed Matt and would not let him leave. It is now that Matt realized that within the minute it took for Jordan to pull him down the stairs twice, everyone who had been awake a minute before was dead asleep for some reason. For the next almost 2 hours, Jordan chased Matt around the house, attempting to hurt him in various ways. But he didn't chase after Matt on foot, he slithered after him like a snake. He was able to slither over and around people, even up and down stairs. In all of this, the scariest thing for Matt was that while he was going on, he was trying to wake other people up, but no one would wake at all. He was the only one awake. He eventually resorted to literally slapping or kicking people, but no one woke up. They wouldn't even stir. One other person was awake through the ordeal, but he refused to help. He told Matt, Jordan is only messing with you because you're awake. I don't want him to know I'm awake. This guy pretended to sleep through the whole thing to escape being harmed. Eventually, Matt knew it would come to simple self-defense. He would have to fight off Jordan. Now, mind you, Jordan is a big guy, close to 200 pounds, but Matt was an MMA fighter at the time. Even though Jordan was bigger than him, Matt had more experience fighting guys above his weight class at the gym where he trained. But Jordan had almost inhuman speed and pain tolerance that night. At one point, Jordan had Matt by the ankles and was trying to squeeze his fingers between Matt's Achilles tendon and bone. Matt curb stomped Jordan in the face twice with boots on, and Jordan didn't even flinch. He laughed. Jordan continued to follow Matt around, taunting him with how he'd kill him if he caught him. He was slithering, so he was moving slow. Eventually, things came to blows, and Jordan was threatening Matt with a knife. Matt picked up a kitchen knife in defense, but ultimately fled to the basement where finally his brother Greg had woken up. Greg shouted at Jordan to shut the fuck up, he was trying to sleep. Immediately, Jordan snapped out of it, confused as to why he was downstairs and why Matt was terrified of him. Matt found his jacket and keys, which had been mysteriously missing the entire time this was going on, so he couldn't leave, and left. The next day, Jordan called Matt and begged him to come over to talk about the night before. Matt agreed, but would not go over alone. He convinced his friend Justin to come with, who was the guy that faked being asleep the night before, because he knew he could prove what happened. Matt honestly thought he must have dreamed it up. It was all so bizarre. The slithering, the taunting, the superhuman strength, no one waking up. It was just too strange to be real, right? Then, some details came to light that started to pose an explanation. Jordan confessed that throughout the night, he had been looking up voodoo spells and information online out of simple curiosity. He didn't think much of it and actually went to bed at just about the same time Matt had left to go to McDonald's. Matt came back and went downstairs. About 5 minutes after Matt returned, Justin, who had been upstairs, saw Jordan come out of his room, sit down at the top of the steps, stare straight off into space and mumble for a good 5 minutes before getting up and heading downstairs. Justin saw everything happen between Matt and Jordan upstairs and assured Matt he didn't dream it up. In fact, he said, if there had been cameras in the house, this would have been the scariest horror movie ever made. It was like Paranormal Activity. On top of this, both Matt and Justin remembered Jordan repeating throughout the night, "The Red Indian made me do it." But they had no idea what it meant. Justin and Matt insisted that Jordan stop messing around with voodoo, and to this day, Matt refused to be left alone with Jordan. Nothing has happened to Jordan since. We have no idea what this could be. We've chalked it up to voodoo, and that seems to be the most obvious answer. But I admittedly know nothing about voodoo. Any ideas? Here is my story. This is all true. We had just moved to Denver. My roommate, we'll call him Tyler, was gay, and for the first time in his life, surrounded by other gay people. For the first few weeks, I didn't see much of him. He was getting a lot of ass, and I was content in our apartment alone. Nothing about it freaked me out. A photo on my wall had fallen off, and that was strange, but I figured it was just gravity. Tyler finally stayed the night in the apartment. We were sharing a bed because he hadn't gotten one yet. We were both drunk. That night, as soon as I turned off the lamp, the blinds started moving. Tyler was freaked out, but I was drunk and tired and brushed it off as just a breeze. He went and slept in the living room. I stayed in the bedroom and told him to chill out and that it was nothing. Nothing else happened that night. But we did bring it back up the next day. We both laughed. I said, "What should we name our ghost?" Tyler replied, "Bill." For the rest of the day, we continued to crack little jokes about Bill. That night, while getting into bed and about to turn the lamp off, Tyler whispered, "Bill doesn't like the dark." The blinds immediately started flashing all around. I turned the lamp back on when we both sat up and just watched. I still wasn't convinced. He made me get out of bed and check where it was coming from, because I wasn't scared, right? I looked for any type of vent or open window, but nothing made sense. I had a little radio in the window sill and it had fallen out. I put it back up, climbed back into bed, and tried to calm Tyler. Again, I turned the lamp off. Swoosh. They start going again, but this time much more intensely. We stare, but this time I am scared. I did what anyone who thinks they might be encountering something. I tried to talk to it. "Do you want us to leave?" Swoosh. The blinds were going crazy. At that point, I was terrified. I jumped out of bed and packed a quick bag and headed to my childhood friend's house. I didn't sleep that night. I shivered in fear. Our next journey would be to try and figure out a way to get rid of Bill. We headed back to the apartment because we needed the internet to find an exorcist. I went in the house shaking in fear, sitting on the floor in a corner of the house. Tyler called and called a few churches. We didn't get any help at all. We actually got really confused responses. Tyler stands up and looks into the kitchen. He covers his mouth and slowly walks backwards. The burners were on, all of them on different settings. I ran out of the house. Tyler followed behind, but did turn the burners off. We sat in the car panicking. "We have to call the leasing office and get the hell out of this lease," I said. That was an awkward phone call. The manager didn't even believe us and thought we were idiots, but I told her everything stated above. She said she would go look into it and call us back. I left my cigarettes in the house. Tyler cried, but fuck that. I was not about to go in there. He talked me into standing by the front door while he grabbed them. All the water sources were on, every sink and shower in the apartment. I'm hysterical at this point and run to the car. "We have to turn the water off, dude." I collect myself and walk to the door again with him. Perfect timing. 2 leasing ladies came down because we were the talk of the office. I asked her to please turn off the water because we were too scared. We all stood inside by the front door and I told them the whole story. One of them put her hand over the burner. They're still warm. They didn't make that one up. They kind of believed us, but not really. Well, not until the maintenance guy encountered Bill. Let's call him Todd. Apparently, after we left, Todd and his coworker were walking past my apartment. He said he was laughing with him about our story. Right when he walked by our apartment, the deadbolt locked. He said they looked at each other and then he grabbed his keys. No one is supposed to be here, so that's weird. He knocked on the door for a while. No one came. He stuck his set of keys into the door and it felt like someone was holding the deadbolt shut. He couldn't open it. He then tried the balcony door. We were on the first floor. That would not unlock either. He tried again with the front door and it unlocked easily. At that point, the office actually believed us and they allowed us to live in a different apartment. The next day sucked. I had to repack again, but I couldn't stay in the house because I was just terrified to death. I had some guy who wanted to sleep with me move everything for me. We spent the entire day moving and I laid on the dining table floor with a boy who liked me. It honestly just felt good to be held. As I played in his arms, I watched the friggin' blinds slowly close by themselves. I cried. Moving didn't help. We did all of that shit for nothing and now I'm in a layout I hate. We continued to try and find a way to get rid of Bill ourselves. That included blacking out every night and mocking it. We were so stupid. We bought some wall sticker decals to decorate our rooms. He bought a big pear sticker and he put it on the wall in his room. It ripped off. We put it back up. It peeled right off. I thought it could just be the wall paint because I was still trying to think logically like a normal person. Nothing else happened the first day. Shit escalated. Bill would pound on our bedroom wall from the minute we lay down to until about 10 a.m. Every night, it wouldn't let us sleep. I even laid by the wall to make sure it wasn't Tyler friggin' with me. One night, my upstairs neighbor came down very upset. It was super fun to try and explain to my neighbor that it wasn't us banging on the walls. It was some sort of demon asshole thing. I even brought him into my room. He saw it with his own eyes and said, "Must be a raccoon in your wall or something." Yeah, a raccoon. People really don't want to believe in ghosts. It messed with us to the point we were scared and couldn't sleep. It would change the shower water to scalding hot, throw lit candles off of the counters, and just do annoying shit. But things started to get worse. Tyler finally saw it. I couldn't find him. It was almost bedtime, so he was going around the house turning off lights. I didn't see him again. "Tyler!" No response. "Tyler, where are you?" "Why are the friggin' lights off?" I turned the bedroom light on. He was in bed, bundled up, completely covered. "What are you doing?" He wouldn't look at me. "Tyler, what happened?" I was getting scared. "I saw him." I was so scared. I can't explain what kind of fear I felt. "Where?" I comforted him. He was crying. "In the bathroom. I went to turn off the light and he was right there. He has no eyes." We both sat up in the corner of the bedroom all night. We did act like total idiots and let our friends stay the night, and they didn't believe us. We would mock it and watch it thrash around mirrors and bang the walls, and they would stare in awe. God, we were really stupid. We couldn't do this anymore. We needed help. I wrote a ghost hunter show, and she wanted to fly out to film if things escalated, but I couldn't wait. She referred me to a local guy who specializes in this stuff. We'll call him Zach. We met up with Zach at a local diner and explained everything above. He came over to the house, but didn't sense anything, not one thing. He told us it wasn't likely that it was a ghost at all, that he has been doing this for 20 years and has only ever once encountered one, and it was because a family member trapped it there with some voodoo shit. He said it was likely an entity. I still don't fully comprehend what that even means, but I knew it was real. He gave us directions on how to rid of whatever it was. He told us to get salt and some other things and put them in bowls in the corners of every room in your house. He told us to burn sage all around all of our windows and doors and yell out, "Get out!" But not to take it lightly, no laughing, you have to mean it. He said if anything new happened, to document it and report it to him. He told us to never acknowledge or talk about it inside the house, and he said to never, ever give it a name. Oops. So that night, my childhood friend and hey boyfriend and Tyler and I all began the process. No one laughed. The energy around us was so tense and silent. We did what we'd had to do and went out for pizza. These things only awoken the beast even more. We got home late and I went to the bathroom. The bowl of salt had been flipped over. I was confused and went to check the others. They were all flipped over. We put the sage in a kitchen drawer when we left. When we got home, the sage was shredded all over the floor. Like, you can't do whatever it did with your bare hands. The drawer was still open. Later that night, Tyler and I were on the couch watching TV when he starts crying and pointing to the kitchen. "Look, in the kitchen!" I didn't see anything. "He's right there, you can't see him?" No, thank friggin' God, because I don't know if my heart could handle that. But as soon as Tyler would look away or blind, he'd say Bill disappeared. He was scared and asked me to please get him a soda. I didn't want to, but I understood how scared he was. I walked into the kitchen and grabbed it. One of the salt bins, the big ones with like the blonde girl on it, was like ripped open again in a non-human way. Not the way you open a salt tab. It was lying on its side. The salt spelled out D-I-E. I was freaking out. I took a picture and sent it to Zach. He replied, "I've never seen anything like this before." We felt like we were doomed forever. I had so many fears that Bill would kill Tyler, and there would be no real explanation, and I'd go to prison for life. I felt like my life was over. This thing controlled everything in our reality. The next night, shit continued to hit the fan. It was always more active at nighttime. Eventually, daytime events ceased completely. We both planned to go to sleep. When Tyler got hit in the forearm with a glass ashtray, he cried. Scary thing is, it was aimed at his head. His forearm stopped it from hitting it. We bundled up under a mountain of blankets while I threw books off of the bookshelf in my room and then threw some cheap-ass end table from Walmart at us. Tyler sat up and put it back on the ground. It continued to throw that table, though. There were holes in the walls from that night. I grabbed Tyler's hands to reassure myself it wasn't him doing it. And it wasn't. Then shit got really fucked. It threw the table one more time. This time it was on me. It was like pushing into me, like something was pressing it on me. I squeezed Tyler's hands. He peeked out. "He's on top of me," he said, but the table was on top of me, not him. I was confused. "Push him off!" He looked at me and said, "I'm gonna push him off and run now. Grab my arm and close your eyes." I did. I didn't want to see it. I was so scared. As Tyler pushed it off, the strangest thing happened. I was slightly peeking because I wanted to see it but didn't, but still did. I saw Tyler push an invisible force off of himself. When he pushed what appeared to be nothing, the table on top of me flew off towards where Tyler was pushing. It was like he could see it, but I could only see it in objects? It was insane. We ran out and left the house and slept in the car. We weren't allowed to talk about anything inside the house, so shit would just go down. I was laying on the couch facing the wall trying to nap. The screen door slams open and shut, open and shut. "Why'd you slam the door open and shut?" I asked, annoyed. I didn't," he replied calmly. "Oh," I mumbled. That was the gist of our conversations about it in the house. Some days, we would leave the house and just burst with things it did to us that day that we had to keep quiet about. Tyler was showering one day, and I sat in the bathroom with him. We didn't ever really separate. We were too scared to be alone. He got out of the shower, and he had 3 cut marks in a row on his right thigh. "Demon claws," I said. I had read about them. I never talked about what I read just to make sure I knew Tyler wasn't friggin' with me, because all this shit is pretty crazy in the first place. You can never be too sure. "Demon claws?" he asked, terrified. "Yeah, I read about them online. I was kinda waiting for that to happen. He said they didn't hurt." Tyler said he saw him one more time. He pointed to the door from the living room. "Look, can you see him right there?" I saw nothing, but I watched the deadbolt lock swing with force where he was pointing. It was chilling. We threw a party one night, and Tyler was in the laundry room rocking on the floor crying. Oh my god, what the fuck happened? It, punched his chest. He was holding it, and I lifted his shirt. It was like someone punched him directly in the chest. Flash forward to us smoking on the balcony. This was the most evidence I've ever gained. It was the clearest thing I ever saw it do. The sliding glass screen door slowly closed right in front of my face. It felt good to see it, and no, I'm not insane. It was really real. Whatever it was. That night, me and Tyler had a huge falling out. He fucked me over hard. He was not a nice person. I could write a whole novel about that too, but screw that guy. He was moving back to our hometown the following week. Zach called me to catch up on the latest paranormal activities. I told him Tyler was leaving town, and he said, "Well, I think things will be pretty quiet when he leaves. I think it's attached to him." Zach sent his entities to guard our house to see if any new energies or spirits or whatever were entering. He said they reported back to him that they saw nothing. None of this makes sense to me, and I have a hard time grasping what he does. He told me he thought it was attached to Tyler, and everything pointed to that being correct. He was the only person who could see it. He was the one it attacked. He was the one it hurt. It never attacked me personally. Once Tyler moved out, everything stopped. I can't explain this shit, and I can't make this stuff up. I always thought it was because someone who Tyler made killed themselves because he was such an awful person. I'm gonna have severe PTSD tonight for even writing this, but I've always wanted it to be on paper. I'm frigged up for life. I can't watch scary movies, can't sleep without a nightlight, can't sleep without a pillow over my entire head, and my nightmares are terrifying. It's been 5 years. Tyler is dead to me, but a friend told me he was telling her this story while sitting under a streetlight, and the light went out, and he brought it up. Who knows? I can say that I did gain some peace about afterlife and other dimensions. There is so much about the universe that we don't understand. It's a friggin' strange world. Sorry for any grammar mess-ups and shitty writing skills. I'm high also, so that doesn't help at all. Feel free to ask any questions.